Okay, so this happened to me earlier, and I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight. I'm currently staying in a remote part of the United Kingdom and having a break from working, which means more time to pursue my hobbies, one being photography. I'd scoped out a creepy looking tree formation in a nearby forest and set my camera and tripod up as the sun was coming down. You know, for that extra creepy vibe. As I'm happily taking photos, I see a woman pass the entrance to the arched trees. This woman had parked her car next to mine when I arrived. She went past a couple of times, looking at me for prolonged periods, with each time she passed. I assume she wants to come up this path, but sees that I'm taking photos, so decides to walk elsewhere. Approximately 5 minutes go by and she appears again, this time walking towards me, dragging her left side with this strange limp. She stops once and stares at me for a few seconds, then starts walking towards me again. I ask her if she's okay. I'm starting to put my camera away at this point and readying my tripod to use for self-defense if necessary, because the vibe I'm getting is way off. And she starts grunting at me, then stops and stares again. It's at this point that this woman is close enough for me to realize that she's actually a man in woman's clothing with a wig. An uncomfortable moment passes and he starts grunting again, walks towards the edge of the path, grabs a pile of leaves, and starts throwing them around, grunts some more, and then walks off aimlessly into the forest. I call my friend to tell her what has happened and ask that she stays on the phone in case this person comes back. I'll just take a couple more photos and then I'm out. For a good 10 minutes, I hear the crunching of leaves circling me in the forest, and I just convince myself that it's the wildlife. Then, silence. I take the photos, and I haven't seen or heard the person for around 15 minutes now, so I assume I'm safe. I leave the path and see that the car has gone. However, I very quickly notice that there is a man walking towards me from the entrance. It's the same fucking guy. He's changed into men's attire, and as he walks past me, he shoots me a grin that sends shivers down my spine. I don't scare easily, but this guy just gave off all of the wrong signals, causing this overwhelming feeling of dread to wash over me. I'm still on the phone at this point and holding my tripod over my shoulder just in case. I quickened my pace and got back into my car. As I did so, I saw him come out of the lane I had been down, stop and look around, then start walking towards my car with intent. I video for a while and then haul the fuck out of there, driving past his car that he had moved down the road and thinking, what in the graybeard fuck just happened? I had a stalker from Xbox Live try to find me at work 2 days ago on Monday. I'm only 17 and work second shift at my local movie theater. It was Friday night. My weekend had just begun. I was on Xbox Live and playing Overwatch and eating now cold pizza like lots of my friends were. I was kicking considerable ass, more than I usually was at this game, and I was on fire for 3 matches. At around 2 AM, I decided to step up my game and go into competitive mode. I got into a match at King's Row, and I was playing Pharah on defense. I got a 15-player kill streak, but I noticed 5 of those kills were on the same guy, a Bastion. I remember his username. The match goes on for about another minute, and then I get an invite to a party. The gamer tag was the same as the Bastion I just killed for the 6th time. I wasn't in a party, since all of my friends had called it a night, except for me at that point. I decide that whatever he wanted to say could be interesting, so I add him. Now I usually expect some kids a few years younger than me to be shit-talking me, but to my surprise, it was a grown man on the other end. More to my surprise, he sounded in his 30s, rather than closer to my age, and he had a thick Spanish accent. I can't lie when I say I half expected this to happen when I got a party invite. Now, I have the mentality where if you're a jerk to me, I'll return the favor. I replied with the classic, "Oh, you mad bro?" Guy doesn't acknowledge what I say. Instead of saying he would fuck my mom, like most people did, this guy said, "You, your entire family. I'll make sure to your mother and make your dad I was sort of shocked by this, but it didn't last. Bro, take a fucking chill pill. He stopped. I noticed why. A DVA on our team had just killed his Bastion hero again. Now this is where things get scary. It sounded as if he turned into a rabid animal that was trying to suffocate itself on the mic, and screaming and howling and spitting all at the same time. It's difficult to describe exactly what sound he was making, but that's the closest I can do. Inhumane noises were coming from this person, as if he was being gutted and possessed by a demon at the same time. It was a grown man too, which made the entire thing scary compared to laughing my ass off when a 12-year-old loses it. The match ended, the enemy team didn't even get the payload moving. The man loses his shit some more because he lost. Then I decided to be an asshole again, and not take this clearly crazy guy's shit. Look, it's not my fault that you suck at this game. You're just being treated like the child you really are. Grow the fuck up, man. The Spanish guy didn't like this. He just hollered into the microphone for, no joke, 20 seconds. It started getting all crackly. He was being so loud, he was breaking his mic. He then removed me from the party. I decided that since the match was over, I decided to call it a night, just like my friends had. My overall reaction to what went down was, okay, that was something. I logged out, turned off my Xbox, and went to bed. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I realized how much of a dumbass I was for not recording any of it. My friends would have fucking lost it when they heard it. Then, I fell asleep. Saturday went by with nothing, and I thought that was that with the pissed off Spanish guy. Sunday was after Saturday, and I logged onto my Xbox that morning to play more Overwatch. I noticed I had a message from the guy saying, "Good morning, my full name. I know you have to go to address of the movie theater I work at tomorrow." I decided to pull out my phone and take a picture of the TV screen. I then texted my boss about it and told her that some guy in Xbox somehow found out where I worked. Now, my boss is a bitchy old lady, so she naturally didn't care what happened on Xbox. Even though it concerned my work, she just blew it off and told me I still had to come in the next day. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and The Incredibles 2 are both hot right now, so we were gonna be busy. I end up coming in the next day at 5:30. It was pretty boring and busy, like I predicted, up until around 8, when a super short guy came in through the door. It was loud and pretty crowded, but the guy fucking hollers my full name. Same thick Spanish accent from Xbox. Oh fuck, it was him. I still, to this day, don't know where he got my info from, or why he decided to come all the way out to where I worked. The theater fell silent. I just walked to the back room where my boss was and told her that the guy from Xbox was inside. She repeated the whole, "I don't care what happens to you on Xbox, get back to work, we're busy." I repeated to her that the guy was inside the building. I didn't know if he wanted to hurt me or not, and that I was going to call the cops. I ended up actually calling the cops. It wasn't until they arrived and spoke to me privately in the back room that my boss ended up taking me seriously. Spanish guy was still inside the lobby, and the cops put him in cuffs and walked him out. I still haven't heard anything from the cops, and I still don't know how he found my info or why he came all the way to where I worked. Either way, I'm still a bit shaken up over it. I don't know if he knows my home address or not, and I'm pretty much on guard 24/7. Either way, I own 2 dogs that can scare off anyone, but I'm still pretty terrified of this guy. For some context, I'm a 32-year-old female. This happened to me when I was about 25 or 26. I work full-time as a researcher at a university, which is where these encounters took place. I'm not a professor or anything, and because of my age at the time, I could have been easily mistaken for just another student wandering around campus. On some days, when the weather was nice, I would prefer to spend my lunch hour strolling around the university grounds outside, or sitting underneath a shady tree on a bench, enjoying the time I was not sitting in a cramped corner of a lab. On one of these days, I was sitting on a bench, enjoying the fresh air, and a male student walking by asked if he could sit next to me. I'm a pretty shy and awkward kind of person, so even though I really would have preferred sitting alone, I said sure. He initiated simple conversation, to which I obliged, but being careful not to be too forthcoming. He mentioned he had seen which departmental building I came and went from, which slightly alarmed me, given I'd never seen this person before in my life. But I pushed the thought from my mind. After all, the weather had been decent lately, and I'd spent nearly all my lunch hours for the past week outside. He asked if I was studying within the mentioned department, to which I told him that I was not a student, but rather I worked there. He told me I was an engineering student, and then followed up with asking me out to coffee sometime. I apologized and told him that I had a boyfriend and would have to decline. We parted ways after that, and I assumed I probably wouldn't see him around again. About a week or two went by, and I was spending another lunch hour outside on campus, sitting on a different bench somewhere. Seemingly out of nowhere, the same man from before asked if he could sit next to me again. Admittedly, I don't remember what he started talking to me about at first. My mind was reeling, and I was rather uncomfortable having to potentially turn this guy down a second time. Sure enough, he asked me again if we could go out for coffee sometime. I apologized and reminded him that I had a boyfriend and would not be meeting him for coffee. And again, he left after that. I was feeling rather anxious now, but I still hadn't reached a level where I felt I had to be too concerned. A few days later, I'd finished work and was leaving the building to walk to where I'd parked my car. The university charges a fortune for parking passes even if you're employed by them, so I'd always opted for free street parking about a 10-minute walk away from campus. My walking route would take me down several quiet residential streets with minimal car traffic. Even pedestrian traffic was pretty sparse on the busiest of days. It wasn't until I was about halfway to my car, down one of these quiet back streets, that I noticed someone walking directly across the street from me, but keeping a few paces behind. I noticed him from my peripheral vision, and I didn't want to flat out turn around to stare at him. It wasn't uncommon to see someone else by any means. I was just always trying to be aware of my surroundings when walking the streets alone. I had to make a few turns coming up anyways, and the chance that they would be going the same way as me was slim. But he did. He made all the turns I did, still walking on the sidewalk across from me, a few steps behind. I still did not want to look at whoever this was. I didn't want him to know that I was aware of what I thought he was doing. I quickened my pace to a speedy walk. I was approaching the first of two busier streets before I would reach my car. His pace quickened to keep up with me. That was the moment I panicked. The moment I was sure that he was indeed following me. After that, I started a full-out jog to cross the first of the busier streets. He ran to keep up behind me, and was now on the same side of the street I was. I was now nearly at my car. I had to cross the last busy street and get about 100 meters and I would be there, but it was crossing the street that worried me. I often had to stop and wait a good minute or so before it was clear enough to do so. If this were the case, he would catch up with me. As if the stars aligned, as soon as I made it running to the busy street, I had a gap to cross. I booked it as fast as I could, finally turning around once I had made it, to look and yell at the man who had been pursuing me. It was him. I could have suspected, but now it was confirmed. It was the engineering student whom I had turned down for coffee. "Stop following me," I yelled at him from across the busy street. "Can I just talk to you?" He yelled back. I didn't even answer him. I mean, the answer should have been obvious from the start, and I was certainly never going to give my time to anyone who had just followed and then chased me for about 1 kilometer. I keep moving quickly to my car, so determined to get the hell out of there, that I didn't even care if he saw which car was mine. He had given up following me, and never tried to cross the road too, to my relief. I got home and broke down. I mean, worse things had happened to other people, no doubt, and I was not harmed, fortunately, but I was shook. I had some anxieties walking to and from work after that. It wasn't long before a coworker and I would walk most of the distance back to our cars together after work. I even changed where I started parking for a time. A few weeks had passed since the incident, and I hadn't seen him around campus at all. I had started spending my lunches in the lab instead of outside, but occasionally I would go to the student center to buy lunch instead. This one particular day, the food court in the student center was packed, almost shoulder to shoulder. I was standing in line at a burger stall, and I heard a guy try and get someone's attention through the crowd. I look up, and it's him again, waving to me and trying to make his way through the people. I panicked, and even though I'm terribly shy, I started a scene and yelled to him to leave me alone. His face dropped instantly as people stared at us, and he slinked back into the sea of students. My heart was pounding and I was shaking. I don't even remember if I ended up getting food after that. I went back to work, and from then on, was even more focused on my surroundings than I ever was before. It's been 5 or 6 years since then, and I still work at the university. I am so relieved to say I never saw him again after the food court and haven't had any other harrowing accounts on campus. I'm still diligent about being aware of my surroundings, especially when I have to walk to and from campus alone. I never asked the guy his name, so I couldn't even report an incident to campus police or anything. All in all, I'm just glad I never saw him again, and I can only hope he never did this to any other girl before or after me.